Okay, Jenna, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here in your beautiful home.
Oh,
Mm-hmm. Of
thanks. Um, so first of all, can you introduce yourself a little bit?
course. Yeah. So my name is Dr. Jenna Preston. I'm a clinical psychologist by training. I'm also a registered board certified art therapist. That's some stuff people don't know about me. I currently work with our military, with all 6 branches of our military here in Colorado. I'm a mom, I'm a military spouse, I'm a daughter, and I'm somebody who's worked in the field of behavioral health for nearly 30 years. So, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Thank you. You are running against Lauren Boebert.
Yes.
What will you do differently than she has done to represent the people of District 4? What changes should we expect to see if you win this election?
Yeah. What changes we would see and what would I do differently? One thing that I would do differently is I would show up and I would be consistent and I would represent everybody. I know that she's somebody who doesn't even hold in-person town halls. Recently got an email from her just in response to something that I needed an answer for, and she reminded me how it's all the Democrats' problems and why we're causing all the difficulties. So I would be somebody who would represent everybody in District 4. It doesn't matter who you voted for, what you believe in, and but I would be a representation for all of them. In terms of what I would do differently is I would show up. I would vote based on what people expected of me. I would be respectful. I would be consistent. And I would not just follow along with the values and things that I believe in, but I would be taking care of whether it's somebody from Douglas County and more of our suburbs areas or in the rural communities. I would be consistent in the voting for things like recently we had the agribility or the issues related to the water and so forth, and just kind of her flip flopping would not be something that you would see on my piece. So yeah, yeah. There's so much more I could say to that too.
Yeah, we all hear you. What are your qualifications to be a U.S. representative?
Yeah, oftentimes people have asked, like, have you ever served in office before? I have not been in a political position before. I come to you as a therapist, as a behavioral health provider. I did live on Capitol Hill and represented my national organization as the governmental affairs chairperson. So I'm very comfortable going on Capitol Hill and working, whether it's, having people come to myself or working with other lobbyists. But I think the most important piece that makes me qualified for this position is that I've chosen a career that's been a career centered on listening to people, hearing what their struggles are, being a person that people can come to. I know what keeps people up at night because they come to me and talk to me about those things. And I'm also somebody who they feel makes a difference. So I pride myself on being a therapist and a provider of somebody that others will say, come talk to Dr. Preston. She's somebody who will listen to you and create a plan moving forward. And it doesn't always mean that we're going to be able to heal and cure things that people are struggling with. But that's one of the special qualifications I think that I bring, is that I'm trained to listen and especially to the person that's across from me and what they need from me, and creating a plan moving forward. And it's something I've done for 30 years, and I can't wait to bring those qualities to Washington, because I think it's needed. Mm-hmm.
Not very many doctors or therapists in Congress, huh?
No, there's one psychologist currently serving in Congress. There's 0 in the Senate. I think that there's a lot of attorneys, and I think there's a lot of politicians, and there's a lot of people that we've that are there to use their skills as litigators and so forth. But there's not people there that are genuinely wanting to listen and to make a difference in people's lives. And I, have done that in my entire career. So yeah, I would be one of only a few, but I think change is needed, and I would bring that.
What can the rural communities, including farmers and rural medical facilities, expect in the way of assistance if you were elected?
Absolutely. We've got to protect those rural hospitals. I am highly concerned about them just not being able to stay open, not being able to provide the care that they need. And in, yeah, and as somebody who works in healthcare, I mean, my position right now is inside a primary care clinic. I have worked in community mental health. I know what is needed in terms of like what those Medicaid funding and so forth. But as you would be getting somebody who chose a career in healthcare, and there's nothing that I wouldn't be working to do to make sure that we keep those rural hospitals open. It takes long enough for people to be able to get to the hospital and the places that they need, and especially in our rural community, we need to be able to have the hours where they can access those care, and that they shouldn't be traveling or have like the risk of having to travel even further to get the care that they need. Because what happens then? People just say, you know what, I don't have time to do that, or now I'm at risk for losing my health care, or the clinic that I went to is no longer able to provide this service. So people put off the health care that they need, and then symptoms get worse, and it even gets more expensive, or we lose those people in those communities. So I am the only candidate in this race that is somebody who works in healthcare. So those rural hospitals are something that's top on my agenda to make sure that we're protecting and getting the funding that they need. Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about your contact with CSU and the agribility?
Yeah.
Agribility?
That's a great question. So I have had the honor to have conversations with the CSU Extension, and whether it's people who are providing direct service or creating programs or doing the research, or also teaching at CSU. And so there's been several members over there. I won't mention their names just because I don't have their permission to do that I know of, so I want to be respectful. But the CSU, if people don't know, they have this program called the Agribility program. And the Agribility program is designed for our agricultural and farming community, where if a farmer and their family is in a struggle, to be able to continue to perform the work that they do as a farmer. So let's say that they have issues related to addiction, or they've gotten injured. They, had got injured in doing falling off a tractor, or their hand inside the equipment, and now they're no longer able to perform their duties as a farmer. So what happens to those farms? The land is not being taken care of, and they're at risk for losing their farming. So the Agribility program kind of swoops in, makes sure that the farmers have the care that they need to be able to continue to perform their jobs. But a big component of the Agribility program is behavioral health, because we know that our farming community is at an alarming rate for things like suicide, but also their risk for things like depression and addiction. So the Agribility program, and something special that I would work with, and why they're very excited to have a candidate like me, is I would highly support the Agribility program, highly support the CSU Extension. Make sure that people know about it, because there's a lot of people that don't even know about all the services that are offered through the CSU Extension, but they are lovely people that deeply care and also think outside the box, because we know our farming community isn't necessarily, they're just hard work in there. They might not necessarily be the first to say, hey, I need some help. So they are able to work within the farmers' schedules, but also in a way that's non-threatening, to say we're here to help. And I cannot wait to work even further with them, just to make sure that they have the care that they need. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great. How have you been addressing farmers and ranchers? What have you learned about cuts in food assistance programs and other things that are affecting perhaps water, or or the tariffs? What have you learned about how that's all affecting farmers?
Yeah, I mean, our farmers want to work. They do not want handouts, and they don't want bailouts. They want to be baling hay. And so they are getting hit on so many fronts. One is water's always a struggle here in Colorado, but how to manage that, and all of our aquifers, and just making sure that they can use the land in a way that's well. But we all know we have not had a lot of snow and weather this winter, which makes people kind of worried about how are we going to manage this. So on the waterfront, that's a struggle. The tariffs have been devastating for our farmers on many fronts. They cannot get the fertilizer or anything that they need from different places. It's so expensive. Their ability to export has been challenged. Outsourcing what they could be selling to other countries, whether it is the soybeans or the wheat or the different kinds of things. So the tariffs have been something that's been absolutely devastating. The workforce. So our immigrants or folks who come over here to do work, their workforce is compromised, as people are terrified that if they come and work on a farm, that their families might be, swooped up and themselves kind of shipped off. So they don't have the workforce they need. They're worried about the water. The tariffs are something that's an issue. Even equipment, right? So if they have a John Deere tractor and the tractor or some kind of tractor and it breaks down, our farmers want to be able to fix their equipment on their own, but they're prohibited from making those fixes because then the piece of equipment won't be warranted. So they have to wait for those pieces to be able to come over for somebody else to do that work. Meanwhile, their equipment's sitting there. They can't do the farming work that they need to do, and you can't get the parts because they're not available, and they're so much more expensive than they cost before. And we have too many places then that are also willing to say with, big dollars saying, don't worry, farmer, I will give you this money for your land. That's been a homestead or something that's been in your family for a long time. Because I like the numbers on I think it's like 70% or something are family owned. They've just been in the family for generations. And how many of our veterans are also in the farming industry? So what do farmers do? Do they sort of say we can't sustain ourselves anymore? We can't live this life. Should we sell our land and then to developers? And then what do they do? So I'm tremendously worried about our farming community and the risk for things like depression and suicide and addiction, and wanting to make farming exciting again, and those generations to want to stay on those family farms. And how do we make it sustainable and really put some policies in place that are going to help to make them do what they want to do, which is feed America, right? Like our SNAP benefits. Our farmers helped to feed those families. The food that goes to the kids in these schooling, like if you are cutting SNAP benefits, you're directly affecting our farmers. And so they a lot of issues there. Mm-hmm.
What is your plan to help strengthen democracy and stop the implementation of Project 2025?
Oh my goodness, right? Yeah, it's happening. Part of it's being informed. I think that we have to make sure that people know about Project 2025. I think there was an effort to bring attention to it. It is in place. It is in full throttle, and it's terrifying. And it's not democracy. It is enforcing a way of life and values that do not represent America. But first and foremost, we need to have more of a balance of power, because right now what we're seeing is that there are no breaks in going forward with closing down the Department of Education, making it more difficult for certain professions. And what's coming is like the risk to women's health and their ability to make decisions about their own bodies. I am very concerned about whether we can even have an election in November, because that is part of 2025. And what they're doing with things like changing the postmarks on the postal service. And what is that for? That's just to put more doubt in people's minds about mail-in ballots and whether we can even trust elections. So they are going playbook by playbook. If you haven't read The Project, there's a few books that I carry with me now. One is The Project, separation between church and hate, my Bible, and the Constitution. And these are things that help to keep me grounded, to say America's democracy is beautiful and it's in jeopardy. And we are at a critical point that we need folks like me in office that are going to do the right thing, but also stay informed and know that these are not American values that are being pushed forward in a way of life. And I'm a Christian. I will say I identify as a Christian, and a lot of the messages through Project 2025 is clouded in this idea of Christianity and putting a like kind of Christian, way of life into forcing it into our American families. And that is not democracy. Our Constitution states it very clearly that there should be freedom of religion. And that is also not what Christianity is about. That is more of a way of almost like a disrespect and almost a hatred for democracy. So we have to get folks like me who are rooted in Christian values, that understand that it means feeding the hungry and taking care of the poor. Also somebody who has a deep love for her country and the Constitution and what those amendments truly mean. And so that's something that I would bring, is that I am going to stay informed, and also just make sure that I'm protecting all freedoms, whether it's religion, your right to bear arms, like who you love, speech, all of that, right? That's what we see going, but it is happening, and I hope to keep people informed as well. Mm-hmm.
Where do you get your news from?
Oh my goodness, right? It's changed. I used to be, I'm going to watch the networks and then like kind of see the MSNBC compared to the Fox News. And I began to see how in all of our news, what you watch is sort of what they want you to see. And then you can have those strong kind of, this is how I stay informed because that's what I saw on the news, but they're only telling you what you want to hear. So I get my news from various different pieces. I do a lot more podcasts, I will say, nowadays too, because I feel like the news is a bit more, just in the moment in those pieces. But I am watching news on all different kinds of angles. I'm not a sit down and watch TV person. I think part of it right now is I just don't have time, and but it is, I do tune it in. Like I just watched the new mayor in New York City. I happen to be visiting Mondam, yeah, and I was visiting my mom, and she had it on the news, and I said, "Oh my gosh, let's go watch this." So we watched, and like all the speeches there, and my son actually said, "Let's watch what other news is covering." And so they just did kind of a quick story on how this is not the right mayor for this, and then they just quickly pivoted within minutes to a different story about something, and it was a good contrast of like, see, on both sides, like they want the viewers to kind of make decisions based on what they're going to show you on things. So a lot of my news comes from podcasts. A lot of it's from Audible and Libby. I listen to a lot of, I do a lot of books and reading. Libby is the library. So our library system, so you can get books for free. I recommend everybody read as much as possible. And then also my American Psychological Association, I get that. And I do. Yeah.
What podcast do you listen to?
What podcasts I listen to? I'm getting really into Pod Save America, Raging Moderates, as a purple candidate who really identifies with where most of us are in the middle. I just kind of love the way that they summarize those two. So those are probably my two favorites right now that I go back and forth from. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. How do you think we've already covered cuts in food assistance programs and how that affects farmers.
And listen, I was somebody, I grew up poor, we didn't always have food. My mom raised three daughters as a single mom, and we quickly went to poverty. We were somewhat middle class. My dad was an engineer. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. And when my parents divorced, we didn't have the resources we needed. So we did rely on the church and food assistance a lot. And I think back to that now, that if the way that these families are treated, that you're weak, or you don't work enough, or maybe you have to show that you're able-bodied or something in order to get the resources and the food assistance you need. We know that when children go to school and they're hungry, they're not able to learn and perform. And the psychologist in me is like, we have to feed those brains and feed them like good food. We have too many families in America that even live in food deserts and so forth. So these what's happening with just taking away food assistance, and Lauren Boebert should know that. I mean, she was somebody whose family relied on assistance. So for you to not take care of our families, and what does my faith teach me? You take care of the hungry, and you take care of the poor, and you welcome the foreigner, but you clothe them. Like, this is at the core of what we should be doing, especially for people that are elected to take care of the people. Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of new technology that's going to have a big effect on people.
Mm-hmm.
One is AI and taking jobs. Mm-hmm. Another is data centers, and it's kind of taking energy and water. Do you have any thoughts about guidelines that you would put, or guardrails you would put around those two industries?
Yeah. So data centers and AI. AI is here. And I think that there are, some good that can provide. But I like what you said about the guardrails. I think that's where the anxiety comes from, is that you have these, whether it's a big data center or something that's so not tangible, like AI, that's going to come and change our lives forever. And we can't put, the genie back in the bottle, if you will. And what is it going to do to our quality of life? What is it going to do to jobs? That all of those things are real. I'm somebody who does support innovation. I think that we need to, continue to upgrade ourselves and work smarter, not harder, those kind of pieces. So I'm not going to be somebody who's going to stamp out innovation, but I do think it's really important that the American people feel like they have a say in what their worries are, and that there's information provided for like what are the guardrails that are going to be put in place in terms of, protecting people's identity, or being able to create new jobs that maybe would be replaced with something that's going to be an upgrade in those ways, and not that it's not done on the favor of people that just come to, like in this case, the president, like, whether it's the Zuckerbergs and Meta and that are out there that say, hey, you know what, I'll give you this if you give me this kind of thing. We got to get the corruption out of this. We have to understand like the overall risks of things, and sometimes we got to pump the brakes a little bit to, research the overall impact on things, get feedback like from people. What are your worries? Because it's the people who have to live near these data centers, or the people whose jobs are, gonna be replaced and have been replaced from these things. They are the experts, and we need to listen to the people, not just the billionaires and the corporations that are, getting special favors for doing what they want. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell the people who are watching this?
Yeah. I will say thank you. I look forward to earning your trust and answering any questions. I know that we are heading into a primary. I really believe that I offer something special in my background as, a military spouse and a therapist and a mom and somebody who's lived, in this district for at least the past 7 years and has been coming to Colorado for the past 50 something years, almost past 50 something years. So, but I am somebody that's going to represent everyone. You'll see purple in my campaign. So if you're wondering why is this person so obsessed with purple, if you think about sort of the left, right, blue, red, Republican, Democrat, it's not about the blue and the red. It's not about kind of those extremes. The majority of us is a combination of that. And if you combine the blue and the red, what do you get? You get purple. And I would be that candidate that's going to represent everyone. And that's what it's going to take to win this district. We have 52% of this district that is unaffiliated and independent voters. Good for them. That's amazing. That's awesome. There's only 16% of us that are registered Democrats, and the rest of them are registered Republicans. So this race is absolutely doable with the right candidate, and it's going to be somebody who's going to be able to capture those folks in the middle where the majority of us are, those unaffiliated voters, those independent voters, as well as the Democrats, but somebody who's going to represent everyone. And I just know that I'm the candidate to do it. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Awesome.